You learned early that being needed felt safer than being yourself, not through words, but through experience. When you helped, people stayed. The room felt warmer. You had a place. So you learned to anticipate needs, soften your words, regulate others' emotions because no one regulated yours. If this resonates, listen. Over time, helping stopped feeling like a gift and became a role you can't leave. Inside, there is a tiredness rest doesn't fix, a quiet grief. Not because helping is wrong, but because you have internalized your usefulness. Being helpful isn't just something you do, it is how you survive closeness, earn your space, and hide the fear that without a role, you won't be loved. That fear almost always starts in childhood, in environments where emotions were unpredictable, where love felt conditional on what you provided. You were praised for being strong, for not needing much, for just getting it. But that praise came at a cost. You stopped developing a relationship with yourself without doing. What do I want? Became, what do they need from me? And it works. You become indispensable, the crisis person, the trusted one. But rarely are you the one checked on without reason, the one allowed to fall apart. Chronic helping becomes a form of hiding, not from others, but from yourself, your exhaustion, the grief of never receiving the care you give so easily. Resentment simmers quietly, in the sigh before answering the phone, in hoping no one asks for help, in fantasies of disappearing. Not to be alone, but to feel what it is like to not be needed. That resentment is a boundary you haven't voiced, a signal from a self you have been overriding for years. But when your identity is built on strength, letting that self speak feels impossible. It threatens the role that kept you safe. So you stay helpful even when breaking, because the alternative feels unfamiliar, risky, lonely. But the loneliness is already here. Not just being unseen, but not seeing yourself anymore, not knowing how to ask for care without guilt. That is the cost. You become someone others depend on, but no one truly knows. Not because they don't care, but because you stopped showing them anything else. You forgot you exist outside of what you do. You notice it in small ways. After helping, you feel hollow. You stay up after everyone sleeps, not busy, just unsure how to be with yourself. You feel guilty for resting. It is not martyrdom, it is because being needed feels safer than being loved. Love can be withdrawn. Needs give leverage, purpose, a reason to stay close. That logic took root long ago. You became the one who holds space, remembers birthdays, says, "I'm fine," even when you are not. People don't ask twice. And that stings, not that they don't care, but because they believe you. You are so good at looking okay that even those closest think you have no struggles. You carry the invisible weight of always being okay for others and never being real for yourself. There is nothing wrong with wanting more, feeling empty even while appreciated, wishing for care without earning it. Helping kept you connected, but now it keeps you from being known. Connection isn't closeness. People can love what you do and still not know who you are. Live there too long and isolation sets in. It is not just no one helps me, it is no one really sees me. Every helper reaches one silent, haunting question. If I stopped helping everyone, would anyone still choose me? It comes from the quiet sense that love has been transactional. If you weren't useful, you wouldn't be wanted. This belief forms over years. Friendships that last only as long as you give more. Times you expressed need and were met with discomfort. So you internalized one rule: be helpful or be alone. You lose access to your internal signal, I matter too. You disconnect from your wants, your voice, your right to rest, to be cared for, to simply be. When that voice is silenced long enough, its return feels threatening, even selfish. When you finally ask, "What about me?" it brushes against guilt you have been trained to feel. Not because your needs are too much, but because they were never taught to be welcome. So you retreat back into being fine. But underneath, a quieter voice stirs, not asking for anything grand, just to be seen not for what you do, but for who you are. You notice it in small moments. Someone offers to carry something and you say, "I've got it." A friend asks how you are really doing, and you laugh it off. That sadness is the echo of all the parts of you unseen while you were busy being what everyone needed. And yet, somewhere in you, a question forms. What if I stopped managing everything? What if I let myself be ordinary? What if I gave myself the attention I have always reserved for others? Not to withdraw, but to return to myself, to find out who I am when I am not fixing, soothing, holding, lifting. That idea feels terrifying, almost wrong. Being the helper hasn't just been behavior, it has been your way of belonging. The instinct that once protected you now prevents you from being known. People thank you, praise you, lean on you, and you have been told that is connection. But real connection requires reciprocity, mutuality, the courage to be with someone, not just for them. You long not for fewer people, but for real closeness. Someone who doesn't just see your strength, but sees through it. Someone who stays even when you are not useful. But to be seen that way, you have to show it. That is the part you were never taught. You were taught to show up polished, composed, ready to help, to anticipate needs and hide yours. Now, as old strategies wear thin, something aches. Not just to be understood, but to be held. Not because you are falling apart, but because you are tired of holding it alone. Tired of performing okay. Tired of only being loved in exchange for labor. This is not bitterness. This is grief. Grief of becoming what everyone needed at the cost of what you needed most. It doesn't scream. It whispers, it waits, until one day the question gets louder. Is anyone loving me? Or just the version that takes care of them? Underneath that, do I know what it feels like to be loved without earning it? When helping is how you cope, stepping back feels like losing part of your identity. You fear becoming invisible because usefulness has been your way of being real. Now you wonder, who am I when I stop? Not forever, not all at once, just long enough to hear myself. To ask gently, what if I am still lovable, even when not helping anyone? It is radical when you have been the strong one so long to imagine maybe you were never supposed to earn love at all. Love at its truest doesn't arrive because of usefulness. It arrives despite your undoing. And maybe it starts with slowly remembering what it is like to be held, even if the first hands that hold you are your own. That is not selfish. That is repair. That is how the helper begins to heal. Even as awareness grows, a quiet fear lingers. If you stop showing up as always, some relationships won't survive. Some people will walk away, and it hurts, because it confirms what you always feared. Some only love you when convenient. So you shrink again, go quiet, reassume the role. But now you know. You can't unfeel the loneliness behind generosity. You can't unknow the version of yourself that wants more. That part won't go back to sleep. It whispers, it waits, asking, if no one needed me, who would I allow myself to become?